Hi, welcome to the Ayurveda for Life. I'm your host, Nadya Andreeva, and today we have a wonderful guest, Alicia Diaz. Alicia is an Ayurvedic health coach whose mission is to empower people worldwide to create sustainable, vibrant health and abundant energy. During her years as a clinical exercise physiologist in integrative medical clinics in New York and San Diego, she was always searching for a way to heal her body from fatigue, digestive disorders, and female reproductive imbalances. Discovering and applying the timeless wisdom of Ayurveda proved to be the missing framework to her and many others that can fully restore balance in one's body and create long lasting transformations. She has studied under the world renowned Dr. Vasant Lad and other prominent teachers in India and the US, and shares these authentic teachings in a practical way that integrates with modern concepts of holistic health. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you, Nadia. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. We have such an interesting topic today that's going to be very insightful for many women watching the interview. But before we dive into any specific tips, I want to hear a little bit more about your personal story and the way Ayurveda impacted your life. So, what brought you to Ayurveda and how did it change your life?
That is so hard to sum up in just a few sentences, but it has just completely transformed my whole existence. But if I had to start somewhere, I was first introduced to Ayurveda when I was doing my yoga teacher training in New York City. And I was actually at that time running the outpatient physical therapy rehab clinic in the city as well. And one of my first just feelings inside was I just started noticing the limitations of my own knowledge in terms of how I could help my clients and patients at that level, and just really craving a more complete or full approach to their healing because I was just experiencing that on an outer level. And then on an inner level, for me, I actually started experiencing some really severe digestive problems. I was having severe reactions to food. I was exhausted every time I ate. It literally felt like my energy was drained. Just all the energy I had was going to digest my food, and it just felt awful. And a lot of bloating and a lot of pain and things like that. So I had previously started down this path of elimination diets and just hitting dead ends left and right. All my Western doctors told me nothing was wrong with me. And that's really what propelled me on the journey initially with Ayurveda, because once I learned and applied these principles and this timeless wisdom, it totally healed my gut. And it enlivened all my energy levels. My energy was restored, and I was no longer in the excruciating pain that I was in before.
Mhm.
So that was the initial introduction. And over the last few years of continuing to study Ayurveda and learn more and apply more on this health journey, it's taken it to a new level. So I kind of feel like that initial healing of my digestive system and of my energy, it brought me a little bit to a homeostasis point where then I was able to peel back a new layer of that evolution for myself. And I actually was totally disconnected from my cycle. I used to feel like my womanly cycle was just a nuisance, and I kind of disconnected from it, as I think maybe a lot of women can relate to. But once I healed my gut, and this new level that was revealed for me was, wow, there's actually a lot of pain around my monthly cycle. I was
Mhm.
getting terrible headaches and PMS and exhaustion that was now not just after I ate, but it was, cyclical. It was like
Yeah.
every time around this time, I'm getting exhausted. So it just it kind of just allowed me to tap into a new layer of healing for myself, which is now what I focus on. And it's not just the physical healing. Ayurveda is so beautiful, and it's changed my life in the perspective of all healing is physical, it's mental, it's emotional, and it's truly spiritual at its core. And so it just started having me question all these new things about not just reproductive health, not just women's health, quote unquote, but what does it really mean to be a woman in this society, and what does it mean to really honor these rhythms that make me very unique as a woman. And so it's really just Ayurveda, simply put, has totally changed my perspective on what it means to self-care and to be connected to my heart and my spirit and my livelihood and just all the different ways that I show up in life. And for me, that's intimately connected with the uniqueness of being a woman.
Beautiful. I love this story. Um, before we move on to talking more about the cycle, can you give
Mhm.
me one or two things that you think helped you heal your gut? Because I think so many people are working with elimination diets and putting themselves in a very restrictive type of um, approach to food, and they still might not be having the results that they're looking for. What were one or two principles, really short, that
Mhm.
changed your digestion?
Such a great question. And yeah, I mean, the gut is the foundation for all of health, according to Ayurveda. So I'd
Yeah, you know
say
how obsessed I
one,
am with a heavy belly.
yeah, no, exactly. Um, Probably two of the things. If I had to narrow it down to two of the most important things that I implemented to heal my gut was one, honoring the daily rhythms. So our digestive patterns follow the sun. Our enzymes are literally secreted for the digestion and in our all of our internal organs along a sun pattern. So for me, it was making sure I was eating regular meals and honoring my digestive fire. So not skipping out on meals, not ignoring hunger cues, not eating more than I'm actually hungry for, eating at regular times, spacing my meals out. I used to graze a lot, so spacing my meals out, 5 or 6 hours apart, allowed my digestion to fully finish what it's doing before I put more food on top of it. So whatever that, it looks different for different people, but honoring those daily rhythms is number one of the most important things. And then also sleeping and waking up at relatively the same times every day allows for a foundation of health. And then I'd say number two most important thing for me healing the gut was eating very simple, whole, real food.
Mhm.
Nothing in a package, everything from the earth, from the ground, plant-centric for me. It doesn't exclude anything. It's a very inclusive way of being, but understanding the nutrients that I needed for my body and providing them in a simple, easy to digest, and very nourishing way.
Yeah, and I think so many people misunderstand what is easy to digest meal, but that's a whole other
That's a
topic.
whole nother topic. That's the topic for your book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you help women align with their moon cycle with the rhythms of the nature. How does Ayurveda explain a moon cycle and what is a moon cycle? Because I feel like a lot of women would be like, "What?"
Yeah. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, one of the core operating principles of Ayurveda and how I interpret that as a practitioner is that our bodies are completely inseparable from nature, from the environment, from the world around us, from Mother Earth, if you will, and all of the planetary influences. So, actually, a woman's hormones are influenced by the lunar cycle. We follow a 28-day, roughly, depending on the woman, a 28-day cycle, just like the moon follows. So, one of the ways I look at it, and that is taught in the ancient texts, is that the full moon, for example, is representative of a woman's ovulation. It's the time when her energy is the strongest and she is literally preparing to bear new life in her body, if that's the
Mhm.
situation that happens. So her energy is more outward, it's stronger. She's very creative at that time of the month. So ovulation and full moon are connected. And then what happens is once that egg is not fertilized, the body starts breaking down the endometrial lining that was prepared for conception. starts breaking it down just like the waning moon phase. So the moon goes from a full moon and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you can't see it in the sky anymore. And that's representative of the waning moon phase until the new moon happens, or the dark moon. And the dark moon is the same kind of metaphor that we use to connect with a woman's menstrual cycle. So at that time of the month, her energy turns very from outward to internal, and it starts cleansing and resting. It needs rest, and it needs to release everything that it built up through the previous time of the month. And then the cycle continues. Once that release is done, it's time for the building phase again. And that building phase continues and grows as the moon waxes back up to the full moon or ovulation period. So that's kind of one snapshot of why it's called the moon cycle, is because our hormonal cycle and our bodies literally are built just like the lunar cycles.
Yeah, and I think it's such a beautiful thing to understand how much you're connected with the outside world and how much it influences you.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is one major misconception that most women have relating to their cycle?
Most women believe that their cycle is the problem.
Hmm.
So there's a general societal understanding or just connotation around the cycle as it's a curse, or that it's, oh, I'm just a woman, I have to deal with this. And I'm actually here to tell you that you don't have to deal with anything, that your cycle is not to blame. That if there is pain, if there is any kind of imbalance, anything that you actually notice very strongly and uncomfortable with in your cycle, that is merely a symptom. It is not the cause, it's a symptom of a deeper imbalance that's happening in the body. And that deeper imbalance shows up in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people, but that's just such a common misconception, is that a woman will tell me, oh, I'm getting, acne or really intense headaches or something, right before my period or around ovulation or things like that. And that time of the month, like we mentioned, the ovulation period, while the moon is waning, preparing for bleeding again, that, if you're familiar with the terms of Ayurveda, is the Pitta phase of the month. So Pitta is representative of fire. It's the transformational quality in the body. So when there's a lot of excess fire in your constitution already, or in excess, in an imbalance, then during that time of the month, it adds and it stacks in the body. So a woman will experience it and she'll say, oh, it's because of my hormones, it's because of my cycle. It's like, actually not the case. It's high because that time of the month is bringing that up. And another thing that's happening is that bodily fire is mobilizing toxins in the system and carrying them to the womb so that they can be released the next month. So if there's a lot of toxicity in the body is trying to mobilize it during that Pitta phase, and the woman will experience symptoms of excess heat. And I'm using the example of breakouts or headaches. But that's one way it'll show up. So what really needs to be corrected is the deeper imbalance of why is there so much excess heat? If it's the liver and the blood system, we need to look at that. If it's toxins in the diet, we need to look at that. If it's daily elimination not happening, we need to look at that and remove the root cause, and then the cycle can be more aligned.
I love how it helps to bring it all back to the root cause and
Yeah.
deal not with just the symptoms.
Yeah.
Um, what can women do to have a healthier cycle, both in terms of correcting the root cause and maybe managing the symptoms?
Mhm. So correcting the root cause is a whole topic for probably another. We can go deeper into it if we have the time today. But I'd say one thing that women can do is to truly understand just the nature of their unique cycle. So how symptoms show up for you, what your deeper intuitive feeling is around the patterns that you see come up for yourself and start charting that. Just having data on yourself is hugely helpful. So chart, you can use, there's different smartphone apps for charting. You could just simply notice, write down the first day on your calendar of when you start bleeding. So if you're going to start charting, the first day of full bleeding, not spotting, but full bleeding, is day 1 of your cycle. And then just counting. And then the next time you bleed is day 1 of the next cycle. So you start noticing how long your cycle is. And then just start keeping like a journal. I actually keep a little journal called my Body, Mind, Moon journal. And I just write these things so I can keep track of what's coming up. So just starting to notice those patterns for you. And then if there's an overriding theme that I have to say is physically and emotionally giving yourself permission to allow your energy to go internal during your moon time, during your dark moon time, during menstruation. Because just like every single day your body calls you to sleep, a woman has a time every month that her body is calling for her to rest. And it's deeply needed. And one of my beliefs is that one of the reasons women get irritable when they're on their cycle with others, irritable with the world around them, is because they're not taking their energy and letting it go inward where it needs to go. It's like, you're fighting to go to sleep at night. It's like, no, I want to stay up all night and I want to keep pushing. It's like, let your body go internal, whatever that looks like for you in whatever capacity you're able, but allowing that energy to go inward and then really embracing that energy to be creative and outward during the full moon cycle. So when you're around ovulation period, the ovulation time of the month, you're going to feel more energy. So embrace that. Do things that make you feel alive. Do things that, really nurture that type of energy for you. And, I could get into all the specific dietary practices and things like that, but I think if I had to narrow it down to the theme that's most important, it would be honoring those 2 times and tracking some data for yourself so that you can start understanding the nature of your uniqueness even more.
And I think in general, keeping a journal is such a wonderful idea because we don't have time to pay attention to what's happening with the body, and that's the best way to learn the tendencies and understand a little bit more about the body.
Mm-hmm.
And this concept of taking time to rest and do things that make you feel alive, I think it's so new and so not honored by so many women. It's kind of like a daily routine, stuff that you have to do, lots of shoulds, a huge to-do list, and it keeps going the whole month. So there's no time either for rest or for things that make you feel alive. So
Yeah,
prioritizing both of them will make any woman happier, even if her cycle is not bothering her.
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And even one of the things like I just started working with a new client this week, and one of the things that she says is she's really struggling with her cycle. And one of the deeper connections is the blood system. Like I mentioned, the liver and blood system before. So when the blood is really depleted, the cycle is going to be impacted and painful. And one of the patterns that she shared with me is that she's often too busy to eat, that she just, goes through her day and she eats very, very healthy. She eats all organic, very, very little animal proteins, but very, good, very healthy, conscious woman. She's very connected to her body. She has a beautiful spiritual practice, but she so embraces life that she's always go, 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 and she will usually not eat lunch, and then by the time dinner comes, she's starving. But like simply nourishing your body so that you can build healthy blood and making food choices that are really rich in iron. A lot of women are, even if their Western medical blood tests don't show it, they're still deprived of healthy blood and iron-rich, blood, which is going to give you more energy. So making sure that you're making choices to nourish yourself throughout the day and to self-care and not just to be, just going, going, going without rest.
Yeah, lunch is such an important part of any
Yeah.
woman's day.
Yeah.
It has to be a beautiful, nourishing meal. And I think in terms of skipping meals, you'd be safer skipping dinner than lunch.
Absolutely.
So, if one of the viewers wants to learn a little bit more about your practice with women or get help with their cycle, how can they find you, your website, and learn more about your work?
Yeah, I'd love to connect with anyone listening to this interview. If this resonates with you, you can check out my website first, ayurvedawithalicia.com. And I also run a really high level, amazing women's health group to support women individually and in community around implementing changes that really nourish and sustain their reproductive health, not just their physical reproductive health, but mental, emotionally, and spiritually. And if that's something that interests you, you can go to my website, click on the health coaching link. It's also just ayurvedawithalicia.com/personal dash coaching. And there's an application there that you can submit and apply to receive a free, totally complimentary health strategy session with me. And we can determine if one of my programs is a good fit to help you reach your goals.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Alicia, so much for sharing your wisdom and sharing your personal story.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, guys, make sure to sign up for Banyan Botanicals YouTube channel so you can watch all other amazing interviews. We have so many already. And I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.